So I definitely didn't see this one coming in any way, shape or form. There was a speculation that Sylvanas might become the Arbiter of the Shadowlands, which was ridiculous to say the least, but recently it kinda started making sense with the new info. However, yeah, that is not happening, this is 100% confirmed. Instead, with the 9.2 we got some PTR leaks, some IDs and voice lines, which confirmed that someone completely unexpected is going to become the Arbiter, which at this point I don't even know what to really think about it, whether it is a good or a bad thing. So who is the next Arbiter? First, I was a bit skeptical about this wallet, but Ridge, the sponsor of this video, sent it to me about a year and a half ago, and really I've not used any other wallet since then. It is actually great. You can put 12 cards inside, and you can put cash here as well, and there are over 30 colors and styles you can choose from. Check out my link in the description to get a 10% discount with code DORON and get your own Ridge wallet. Right off the bat, no, we still didn't learn about what that red thing was that destroyed the Arbiter, so that is still up for speculation. However, what is certain is that the Arbiter we knew before is no more. We also learned that during some ancient primal time of the Shadowlands, Zoal was the original Arbiter that realized that he's just a cog in the mechanism of the first ones, and as he planned to acquire the sigils, he was imprisoned. Well, all of you already know what happened next, the entire story. He managed to get the sigils, he reached Orebos, drained that orb, got his true form, and essentially got rid of this robotic Arbiter, and he went into Zereth Mortis and the Sepulchre. Now, that is where we are with the story officially. However, 9.2 PTR was just data mined and we got some huge information. Keep in mind, this is literally the ending of the Shadowlands, or at least a part of the actual ending. So if you don't want massive spoilers, just don't continue watching. But essentially, there is like a huge gap between where we are now with the end of 9.1 and the end of 9.2. So I'm not going to leave you guys hanging and try to keep this mysterious any longer. The new Arbiter is Pelagos. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Who? That guy that we saw like 3 times while questing? Now, I don't want to be unfair, he really isn't a bad character at all. My reaction was just, okay, I guess. Definitely didn't saw that coming. It's not like the good type of unexpected fighting as in someone we definitely didn't see coming becomes the Arbiter, but it's more like, well, I guess this guy is the Arbiter now. In my opinion, Pelagos had a decent storyline and all, but as someone that played as the Vantir this entire expansion, I honestly barely even remember this guy. I know he was important in the initial quests, he showed up on a few occasions, but honestly I pretty much forgot about Pelagos. I vaguely remember him. I'm not saying he's a bad character or anything, it's just that I definitely didn't see him nearly as important as him becoming something grand as the new Arbiter of the entirety of the Shadowlands. So now that you know who is the Arbiter, let's get into the real juicy information, which not only speculates the ending of the Shadowlands, but also reveals a few good and bad things. At this point, these are like the earliest possible leaks, but it is almost 100% confirmed that Pelagos will be the new Arbiter. First, there is a data mined NPC, literally named Arbiter Pelagos, but more importantly, there are actually voice lines. There is an entire conversation between Pelagos, Clea, his Sky sister, and us, and a few parts I just find incredibly cheesy and worrying for the future of World of Warcraft. So this entire conversation starts as sort of a shock, and there is obviously some big encounter here that we are missing. Clea says, "But what about your soul, Pelagos? You do not have to do this," which obviously signifies that something is happening and he's sort of doing this as a sacrifice, but again, early leaks, huge gap, so it is almost impossible to speculate and just try to untangle all this stuff with so little information. Then, Pelagos continues on from his storyline of joining the Kyrian, and he tells Clea or us to get his message to Adrestes, the Paragon of Devotion, and he says he's sorry he couldn't become an Acolyte and serve Bastion, and that he essentially found his actual true purpose of becoming the Arbiter. Then Pelagos says that he now plans to bring back balance to the Shadowlands and to justly get souls to their destination, which in itself is actually the most important out of all these lines. Here, he's either referring to the fact that there was no Arbiter for some time and everyone was just damned to them all either way, or he's referring that the robotic Arbiter, which was recently shut down, has actually been corrupt this entire time and she wasn't really doing her job as she was supposed to, which is why he said he plans to do the job in a just manner. again, huge gap here, so it is really hard to make sense out of this. Now, two more things, one incredibly cringy and one big spoiler for the actual story. He says the line, "Thank you, Maw Walker, my friend. Without you, I couldn't have found my path. Now I can direct souls to the afterlife they justly deserve." Now, I'm glad we're being acknowledged and all, but damn, again, we are becoming the super cosmological interdimensional soldiers. Really? Now we're personal friends with the actual Arbiter of the afterlife? Like, literally, what is going on? This is about as close to us being buddies to the actual Titan Pantheon, or, you know, Sergeras just referring to us by name. Now, I know we technically did help him and all, and that is true that without us he couldn't become the Arbiter, but I'm not really liking the idea of us being actual friends with the Arbiter of the entire afterlife. You know why? Because we are actually mortals and we are supposed to go to the afterlife at one point in time. Isn't it a bit ridiculous that we helped a guy become the Arbiter of the Shadowlands? This is literally as close to us being buddies with a god as we can get. I think it would be better if they acknowledged the help of the mortals of Azeroth or something like that. Thank you, mortal champions. But he literally refers to us, or in this case, when you're playing the game, he literally refers to you that you're watching this video. He doesn't say Maw Walkers, adventures, or anything like that. He says, "Thank you, Maw Walker, my friend." So literally, your character is now friends with the actual Arbiter of the Shadowlands. I don't know if it's just me, but I find that just kind of really ridiculous. I know they talked about scaling us down and all, but I think this might just be the actual ceiling of our importance in this game. I'd say we reached the absolute top. I think the only way we could be more important in this entire Warcraft universe is if we, the players, just established our own pantheon, became titans, or something ridiculous like that. Now, I'm sorry I got a bit sidetracked here, but here is one more line that Pelagos says that is actually crucial to make sense of this story. He says this stuff as seemingly he becomes the Arbiter, but then in the end, Pelagos tells us, "Oribos and all the Shadowlands are counting on you. The jailer must be defeated," which obviously implies that he became the Arbiter of the Shadowlands before we actually defeat Zoal. So this means that something big will be happening prior to the massive, most important encounter within the Sepulchre. At this point, personally, this doesn't make too much sense to me, and I thought we would first get rid of the jailer, fix this mechanism, and then we would patch everything up by placing the Arbiter, but seemingly this happens before, which honestly just makes the entire thing very hard to speculate on. To be completely honest, I definitely didn't see this coming in any way, shape, or form. I would not expected someone to replace the Arbiter akin to the "there must always be a Lich King" line back in Wrath of the Lich King, but I never once entertained the thought that it would be a relatively minor character such as Pelagos taking this massive role. Obviously, we'll have to wait for more stuff to be data mined, for the patch to actually be released, as well as the cinematics to make sense of this, but even now, we do have some really big information for the ending of the Shadowlands. Thank you for watching. Check out the connection between Zereth Mortis and Azeroth by clicking on the screen, and also check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real-world history. See you next time.